This is my audience, my mom, my sister, my dad, and my dogs. So my mom's going to record me now. My speech is about Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a common disease that has significantly impacted my family because several of my family members have suffered through it. In my speech, I hope to bring awareness about this disease to you. We will talk about what Alzheimer's is and how it scientifically affects the brain and how that comes off as symptoms. We will talk about the differences between Alzheimer's and dementia, and then we will talk about ways that you can prevent this disease. I do have a lot of experience with this disease because my grandmother, my grandfather, and several of my great aunts and uncles have had this disease. And I hope that my speech informs you and educates you on the seriousness of it. Let's begin about talking about what Alzheimer's is and how it affects the brain. It directly affects the anatomy of the brain and its motor function. Alzheimer's is an irreversible progressive brain disorder. And according to the National Institute on Aging, on May 16, 2017, the Alzheimer's disease starts in the hippocampus area of the brain. It is located a little bit below the core of the brain and right above the brain stem, right there. It has several different core functions like short-term memory, it holds long-term memory, spatial differentiation, and emotional response. There's another fun fact about the hippocampus, and the word hippocampus is actually derived from Greek, and in Greek it means sea monster, and it's shaped like a seahorse. So it's kind of gross, but that's what it looks like. When the hippocampus starts to deteriorate, the symptoms start to arise. And the symptoms are pretty common in each Alzheimer's patient. They start with memory loss. Memory loss can be like if an Alzheimer's patient doesn't know where they are, doesn't know who the people around them are, or what a certain object is. Especially if they get lost, that is also spatial differentiation. That can also lead to confusion. Confusion about who is with them or where they are, which is also lack of words. They don't have the words to respond to the situation. And that can also lead to lack of logic and lack of reasoning, which is also oftentimes leads to pointless arguing about what something is, about where they are, or any situation that arises because they're just confused. My experience lies with my grandma and my grandfather. So my grandfather, he had Alzheimer's for about 17 years. I wasn't really around for most of it because I wasn't alive when I was a baby. But his symptoms, from what I understand, came off as drastic mood swings or getting lost. But from what I understood, he still had motor function. So there was even a time where he drove away in his car and he got lost, so he could still drive to an extent. He could still do everyday tasks. But my grandmother, she had dementia for about 3.5 years, and my mom was the caretaker for her, so I got to see firsthand all of the things that she experienced. And one big thing that I noticed, and things that I researched this often came up, is that with dementia, motor function deteriorates a lot quicker than it does with Alzheimer's. So it's as simple as forgetting how to use a fork or forgetting how to go to the restroom by yourself. And actually, the Alzheimer's Association on April 22nd, 2020, talks about dementia and how it is an umbrella term. And the biggest difference between Alzheimer's and dementia is that the loss of motor function. But dementia has a lot of different causes to it, like Parkinson's disease and strokes. And Alzheimer's is actually a type of dementia, and Alzheimer's can lead to dementia. But the biggest difference ultimately is the loss of motor function. So now let's talk about some ways that we can prevent this disease. It can't be prevented fully, but these are some foolproof ways that you can try to prevent it as much as you can. The first one being exercise. If you exercise 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes, like rigorous exercise, that can also help prevent Alzheimer's as much as it can. And then another prevention way is eating healthy or diet, but specifically a Mediterranean diet. So the Mayo Clinic on April 20th, 2019 defined a Mediterranean diet as fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fish, and olive oil as the main source of fat. And the last thing that you can do to prevent is you can continue learning every day. You can actively read books, do puzzles, and just exercise your brain so that way your brain stays refreshed, young, and healthy. This topic is very near and dear to my heart because of my experience with it, and I really hope that it brought awareness to you. And in my speech, we discussed what Alzheimer's is, scientifically how it shows up as symptoms. We discussed the differences between Alzheimer's and dementia, and we discussed different ways that you can prevent this disease.